Hello, everybody. DM Geezer Jim here, continuing through our reading of Uncaged Faces of Sigil, an excellent NPC driven book telling about life in the city of Sigil and Planescape as a whole through stories about the people that live there. People, creatures, and all that kind of stuff. So we're on part 36 here, the Unity of Rings. We're going to knock out a couple more videos, try to get this book wrapped up here pretty soon. But as usual, we will be reading directly from the text as it is, and then offering a little bit of commentary at the end of the book. Now, some of these NPCs have been mentioned and connected before here and there, and I'll add a little commentary as we go through, but this should mostly be an audiobook type thing with a little bit of commentary at the end. So next up is the Unity of Rings. Starts with a little bit of a rhyme. Give it to the Deva, see it with the poor. Give it to a factal, never see it more. Children's rhyme in Sigil. Take a minute to think about all the rings in and around Sigil. First of all, naturally, is the city itself. It's really just one big ring. The cage floats atop the spire, far above the outlands, a circular plane made up of many concentric rings. Of course, all the outer planes sit on a hoop around the rim of the outlands, and a body who tours these planes on the Great Road walks, that's right, a ring. Nobody can mark a spot on a ring where it starts or stops. Beginning and ending flow together seamlessly, as sure as consequence follows in action. A Burk who follows a ring's logic soon ends up back where he started, hopefully wiser for the trip. The fact is, the idea of the unity of the rings is one of the three main truths that governs the multiverse, and the Monavic Deva known as Unity of Rings is surely the physical embodiment of that maximum. Gliding serenely through the sooty clouds above the great foundry, trading quietly among the Barar merchants of the bazaar, teleporting from one blood-stained kip in the hive to the next, Unity of Ring patrols each cranny of Sigil like no harmonium basher ever could. But unlike a hardhead, the silvery white Deva does charity for those who need it most. The aid's on a small scale, the kind that anyone could do, those most usually don't. He serves soup to the hungry at Alesha's pantry. He waits in excruciatingly long lines for sods too weak to stand on their feet all day. He steers the clueless away from cross-traders peddling fake guides to city portals. Unity of Ring never asks for payment, but he takes it if offered, then gives it away as soon as possible. Whether it's a bag of copper, an enchanted dagger, or a wedge of Krigalan cheese, the Deva passes a reward on to those in need. And with his eyes of celestial silver, he can usually tell a sod who's truly needy from one who's just faking it. Not that many Burks would dare peel a Deva. The chant that Unity of Rings was the inspiration for the Asgardian sect of ring givers, folks who believe that giving everything away is the key to winning the multiverse. Jeremo, the Natterer keeper of the Palace of the Jester, swears that the sect's historical records prove that the Deva started the group himself, but he turned down a leadership role. Of course, Jeremo's plotting to get the Hall of Speakers to recognize the Ring Givers as an official faction with Jeremo's factal, so his agenda may be skewered. Another thing that Unity of Rings gives freely, too freely some would grumble, is advice. The Deva is so attuned to the truth of the ring that he can view all possibilities, all futures, as they were just points on a circle that quite naturally had to follow one another. Say he spots Shemeshka the Marauder about to snatch the eyes out of a Burk who tried to peel her. Think it through, he'll call out, fluttering nearby, for it shall surely come full circle. Of course, the Arcanalot's likely to hiss the do-gooder away, but many lesser citizens of Sigil stand in awe when Unity of Ring touches down before them. Adventurers singled out for such admonition often feel blessed, honored that their goings-on are worthy of a Deva's notice. But what they don't understand is that Unity of Rings sees the big picture and never gives advice on which choice to make. Think it through doesn't necessarily mean don't do it. Often it's just the Deva's way of encouraging saws to see the long-range rewards of their actions. What's more, his words don't always refer to some grand undertaking like a paladin's siege of the Darkgate Citadel. The advice could just as well meant to stop a shopper from buying silk rope for 10 gold pieces when it's available for 5 down the street. The Deva's manner of speech is even more troubling than his cryptic portents. Not even a governor can get a straight answer out of the sod. A body who engages Unity of Ring in a conversation is likely to pull his own hair out after 20 minutes of the Deva's circular reasonings. No matter what the subject, he takes a path of logic that always ends up back where he started. It seems impossible to change his mind or get him to think in a linear fashion. Folks wonder what power sets him about the task of giving his time to the poor and oppressed of Sigil. As usual, no one's been able to find out, but the dark of it is Unity of Rings is a proxy of Tyr, who sent the Deva from Mount Celestia to hammer out the dents in the rings of the cage. An even greater mystery, however, is the Deva's relationship with his thematic counterpart, the Cambion beggar Rule of Three. The two are as opposite can be in race, in home play, in alignment, and general disposition. Rule of Three keeps whatever any sod full enough to give him, yet both represent a fundamental rule of the multiverse. If a body could wrest a straight answer out of the Deva, he'd probably say that he and the Tanari were opposite points of the same ring, and thus more connected than might seem readily apparent. Sages who know the ways of the plane realize that there's a third rule that governs it all. The idea that wherever a body stands is the center of the multiverse, that no place is inherently more important than any other place. These folks whisper about an Arunmak Rilmani named Center of All, said to live on the outlands on the slopes of the Spire. Center of All, if he exists, is rumored to be the mightiest being of the plains, bar none. But if Unity of the Rings knows anything about it, he's not saying, or maybe he is, and no one's wise enough to tumble the chant. That's the story about the Deva named the Unity of Rings. Devas are mid-tier to upper-tier celestials, angels, angelic beings. This one is dedicated to doing good throughout the cage. Now, our reading speaks about the Unity of Rings having some sort of portent, having insight, possibly knowing the future of everything. So that does make him this NPC viable in use for a quest giver, an answerer of riddles. The Unity of Rings is also there, I think, for us DMs when we're playing in Sigil to give our players an out, give them a soft landing. If they're struggling with things, it's not out of the character of this Deva Unity of Rings to show up, give them some advice, give them some help, rescue them from a situation where they really shouldn't. We all know how player characters can be. They talk themselves into a situation they really shouldn't, that they can't escape. They've pissed off the wrong guy, and we're about to TPK the whole party because they've stepped on a pit fiend's tail and told him to saw it off. Unity of Rings provides us an out, a safe, lore-driven reason for these bad things, these consequences of our players' actions to not necessarily manifest in that way. He can show up as a rescue. He can show up to deliver a message. If your players are struggling with finding out information, they can seek out Unity of Rings. But when you're playing him, play him in a circular argument. I always kind of think of I know it's a dumb reference, but the movie Mystery Men, the character, the Sphinx, played by Wes Studi. Everything he says is a circular statement. Everything he says is a balanced argument. That's how you need to speak when you're role-playing the Unity of Rings. What goes up must come down, but what comes down does not always go up. Silly things like that. But, the idea, though, ultimately is to use the Unity of Rings to give your players information without removing their agency. Because nowhere does Unity of Rings say, you must do this. He'll say, think about it. What goes up must always come down. Evil without good is good without evil. Silly statements like that can clue your party into a direction without forcing them down it. So Unity of Rings is a very useful non-player character for a sigil-based campaign in that it gives us a direct safety catch, if you will. It gives me and you as DMs, as GMs, a non-player character that we can use to lower the temperature in a given situation, to provide a clue when our players get flummoxed by a rumor or a mystery, to provide direction when they get lost, without actually giving them, here's the map, here, turn left, take 2 lefts, take a right, and you'll be at where you need to be. Okay. So a useful NPC, interesting story. But he is definitely connected to the Rule of Three, which I think we spoke about him earlier. The Cambion son that someone said is a descendant of Grazit. Story for another day. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the story. Hopefully you're able to see some value within this non-player character. A lot of times we, as Dungeon Masters, we tend to spend our time preparing antagonists, preparing foils for our characters, preparing the bad guys, preparing the opposing force. A lot of times we need to have some friendlies, some non-player characters that can provide assistance. And within the city, Unity of Rings does this as part of his purpose. It's not unusual. It's not going to break any sort of immersion or cause any sort of fracturing in a storyline for Unity of Rings to show up out of the blue to help our player characters. So don't sell them short. Hopefully you enjoyed the story. Thank you so much. Likes, follows, subscribes are appreciated. We'll continue on with the Faces of Sigil books soon, and I've got a couple more projects bubbling up to hit YouTube here in the near future. Push that button, push that like button, push that subscribe button if you haven't. Check out some of my other videos. I know some of them are older before I knew what I was doing, but we're working through them. Join us over on Twitch if you'd like to join us for live chat. If you've watched any of my videos and you have questions, we'd love to have you over on the Twitch channel. We're there Tuesday to Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., just chatting D&D. Love to have you join us there. Obviously, of course, would love to have additional support if you want to help a brother stay in business and help a brother keep building content. Help me out over on Patreon as well with a sub. But above all, thank you for your time, and hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you for the next episode soon. Take care.